Imagine being accused of stealing. Not money, not jewelry, not a car, but an old rusty tea kettle. Now imagine that accusation spirals so far out of control that it detonates a family feud, decades in the making. 1. That ends with a narcissistic mother being exposed to an entire community. That's exactly what happened to me. She thought she could ruin my life over a tea kettle. Instead, I ruined hers. If you've ever tasted the sweet satisfaction of standing up to someone who's tried to control you your entire life, this story is going to hit deep. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share your own story in the comments. This is not just revenge, it's liberation. Now, let's dive in. I'm 42 years old, and for most of my life, my mother was the sun in the storm. Everything revolved around her moods. She's what therapists would call a textbook covert narcissist. Sweet and charming in public, venomous and controlling behind closed doors. Growing up, she knew exactly which buttons to press, how to guilt trip me, how to twist reality until I questioned my own sanity. And like so many kids raised by narcissists, I developed codependency. I bent over backwards to keep the peace. But as I hit my 30s, I started to resist. I tried the hands-off approach. I wouldn't argue, but I also wouldn't let her win. And honestly, there was a dark kind of pleasure in watching her rage when I refused to play her game. Still, every conversation came with a cost. My mental health, my peace. She could still hurt me with just a few carefully chosen words. So when my grandmother's health declined, I made a promise to myself. Take care of Nanny, no matter the cost, but guard myself against my mother's poison. I moved back to my hometown to care for my grandmother. She had always been my safe place, the one person who loved me unconditionally, who believed in me, who never twisted love into a weapon. For 4 beautiful years, I lived with her. I worked a smaller, less-paying job, but it was worth it. I was giving back to the woman who had given me so much. And in those years, even with my mother lurking in the background, I felt at peace. But peace never lasts with a narcissist circling. The moment my grandmother passed away, my mother swept into the house like a queen, returning to her throne. She started laying down rules for how I could live in her house. Keep in mind, this was the same house I had maintained for years. I paid the bills. I did the upkeep. She didn't spend a dime. But suddenly, she wanted rent, obedience, control. I was 39 years old, and she was still trying to dictate every detail of my life. So I said no. I made plans. I packed my entire life into a U-Haul and left, alone. But here's the thing about narcissistic parents. They don't let go easily. And here's the thing about us children of narcissists. We often give one last chance. So even after everything, I told myself, one more try. If she can't play nice this time, I'm done for good. My aunt even set up a family group chat. Funny memes, updates, little things to keep us connected. At first, it seemed okay, but then the comments started. Snide remarks about my new place, condescending jokes. And then, 5 months in, she crossed the line. She accused me of stealing from her. What had I supposedly stolen? An old cast iron tea kettle. She claimed I had taken it from her house and given it to my dad, her ex-husband. Now let's pause here. If you know narcissists, you know how they twist history. This tea kettle wasn't even hers. It had been in my father's family for generations. She only took it during the divorce as a way to hurt him because heirlooms mattered to him. But when I called her, she went full rage mode, screeching, accusing, demanding, I get that tea kettle back or there'd be hell to pay for an object she didn't even value, other than as a symbol of control. So, I called my dad, and guess what? He immediately laughed and said, "Is this about the tea kettle?" Turns out, years ago, My grandmother had quietly given it back to him. She felt guilty that my mom had stolen it in the divorce. She told him, "This belongs to you. Please take it back." And he did. End of story, except years later, my mother found out through gossip. And instead of admitting she'd been caught, she rewrote history in her head and blamed me. Because in her world, the narrative always has to paint her as the victim. At this point, I was exhausted. I had lived 41 years of this insanity. And here she was, dragging me through hell over a rusty tea kettle. In the group chat with my aunt watching, she called me a liar over and over. She humiliated me publicly, and something inside me snapped. See, I had been documenting her lies for years. I recorded conversations. I saved texts, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed proof for myself that I wasn't insane, that the gaslighting wasn't real. And now, I realized I could use that proof. First, I tested her. She had recently claimed she was selling her house and wanted me to move back in under bizarre conditions. Her story made no sense, so I asked a real estate buddy to check. And, no surprise, her house wasn't listed anywhere. Another blatant lie, and I had the recorded conversations to prove it. So when she tried humiliating me again in the group chat, I broke my lifelong rule of protecting her image. I exposed her. I posted the real estate listings, showing her house wasn't for sale. I showed the proof. My aunt gasped as my mom scrambled with more lies. And then I took it further, when my mother launched a smear campaign against me, sending flying monkeys from the family, and even dragging a preacher into shaming me. I decided enough was enough. I created a massive group chat. Every family member, every friend, some of her church members, even her husband's relatives. And I dropped years of receipts. The texts where she trashed them behind their backs. The voicemails where she twisted the truth. The recordings of her lies. Every ugly truth she had hidden behind her sweet, public mask, laid bare. And then, silence. The final blow. My dad posted a picture of the tea kettle with one simple line. Was this really worth it? Then he and I left the chat. The aftermath was chaos. Some people were furious. At her, at me, at the entire mess. Some apologized for believing her lies for years. And some doubled down, blaming me for not being the good daughter. But you know what? I didn't care. For once, the truth was out. Her mask was shattered. Her carefully curated public image was gone. And she knew it. For a narcissist, there's no deeper wound than losing control of the narrative. Her ego took the hit of a lifetime. And me? For the first time, I felt free. I went no contact that day. Changed my number. Blocked her completely. Some family cut ties with her too. Her credibility is gone. She's miserable from what I hear. But I don't want updates. I don't care anymore. All of it, 40 years of abuse, manipulation, gaslighting, came crashing down over a rusty old tea kettle. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Sometimes revenge doesn't come from elaborate schemes. Sometimes it comes from telling the truth, loudly enough that the lies can't drown it out. In the end, that tea kettle wasn't just a symbol of family history. It was the spark that finally set me free. So tell me, what's the pettiest thing someone's ever tried to control you over? And what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if this tale of truth and tea kettles hit home for you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, justice really is served piping hot.